Mr. Nathan Krawetzke is coming to us from Chicago, Illinois, also a Michigan native. Nathan, welcome to Jesuit Lunch Hour.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Go Blue.
Go Blue. It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure.
This is not a good way to start this conversation, Nathan. Okay.
Full disclosure, I didn't go to Michigan. I just wanted to.
You didn't go to Michigan. You are a Dayton Flyer. You studied under the great Marianists down there in Dayton. You found your way to the Society of Jesus with a significant stop in Alaska in between. What happened in Alaska?
Well, the Marianists are good because they're, they really promote, as part of their charism, like community and service. And so tons of students from Dayton go to a service year. And in my senior year, I had been, reading the gospel or from the Bible every day and, doing things with campus ministry and whatnot and growing my faith. And I wanted to do something that was like more full-time active in service because I was doing a lot of that faith building part. Like internally in prayer and ritual, but not as much in like the service environment. So I looked up programs and I wanted to go someplace that had mountains. I wanted to go to someplace that was kind of far away and much more exotic, I guess, than Erie, Michigan, where I'm from, which is a great place, but it's very flat. And so, JVC Northwest had programs in Anchorage, Alaska, and I was hoping to work with youth experiencing homelessness, and they had a program doing that at Covenant House, Alaska. So that's how I got there, mountains and service.
When did you start discerning a Jesuit vocation, and what was that like at first?
So, I'd been afraid of having a vocation for many years of my life because I didn't trust that God would want me to do something joyful with my life for some odd reason. And so I think what happened was when I really started to get into the discernment, I'm like 23 or 24 years old, I really need to look into this and stop pushing it off. Because I think I was growing in my faith and saying like, oh, God loves me and actually wants the best for me. The light bulb kind of clicked. It took a lot of, prayer and work and whatnot. But it was like then, I guess, when I started seeing a spiritual director. And my spiritual director would encourage me to read things. I was reading Jesuits. I had this Byzantine, Catholic priest who was my spiritual director, and he encouraged me to read like Abandonment to Divine Providence, which is by a Jesuit. And since I was a Jesuit volunteer, I was reading things like, by Jim Martin, like My Life with the Saints. And then after my Byzantine priest friend was my spiritual director left, my new spiritual director kept suggesting I do the examen. And that since I was kind of doing education as a youth minister, he was like, well, you should look at the Jesuits and you should probably look at Holy Cross. So that's kind of really when that happened, was when he started kind of pushing me in that direction. And it seemed to fit. It seemed to fit really well.
Great. Nathan, you mentioned the examen. I bet some of the people watching this have great familiarity with the examen, but probably some do not. Could you say a little bit about what the examen is and then also kind of its role in your own prayer life?
Yeah, I think, the great thing about the examen is, and this will be, I guess, a way of kind of describing it, is that it's a way of not simply like processing your day. That's kind of a common lingo word now, like processing. But it's a way of taking your day and paying attention to where, God is moving, where the Holy Spirit is moving in your life through, be it your, strong feelings from the day, from the activity of the day, from the things that happened in the day, the events, and sitting with and praying with those things as part of your experience of bringing that to God and to say like, oh, is that something that's drawing me closer to God, or is that, that event, that feeling, that activity, is that drawing me away from, which direction is it pulling me? Is it pulling me this way or this way? And to see how then we're responding to God's action in that. So it's like a helpful process of paying attention that St. Ignatius talks about doing twice a day for Jesuits. So, and I know lots of people just do it in general now, which is just a great active practice.
And your current mission is there in Chicago. You're kind of on your way into a transition. Can you tell us what you've been doing and what you hope to do over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I'm almost officially done here with my mission of being a scholar, a gentleman and a scholar, here at Loyola, Chicago. So I've been for the past 3 years in grad school doing a degree in philosophy, and then picking up credits in theology for later theological studies. Um, so I just have to finish out my exams and turn in a last final paper. Um, and then I'll be moving on to Regency, which is the period of formation for a Jesuit, where you then, having done your studies, hope to integrate that into a work environment, apostolic environment, where then you're taking all the prayer experience and then intellectual experience that you've developed and worked, and you're applying it as you work in an apostolic sector. I'm going, a practical way of saying this is I'm going to Red Cloud Indian School out in southwest South Dakota. Very beautiful, kind of like Alaska, very beautiful place, lots of hills, the Badlands. And I'll be teaching juniors ethics. So hopefully I'm an ethical person, a person of virtue for these students. And then the following 2 years, the plan, which could change, is that I'll be helping to like co-run a volunteer program. They have about 25 or so volunteer teachers who come out and do a year of service teaching or working in the school. And so I'd be coordinating that sort of program and helping provide like formational elements for those, recent graduates who typically come out to do that program.
Great. And Nathan, I mean, probably many of the people watching this would be familiar with the Jesuits in rather large cities. So maybe they're connected to an institution like Loyola University Chicago or Marquette High School or whatever it might be. We typically work in cities, but you're going to a different place. Can you say a little bit about what Red Cloud is and just kind of the work of the Jesuits in South Dakota?
Yeah. Well, the Jesuits have been out in South Dakota in that area since the 19th century, especially in the area of South Dakota since really the latter half of that, since like the 1870s. So the Jesuits have been there working with the Oglala Lakota people. There is, there can be some troubled, tough history out there as well. But really, they run a lot of parishes and schools, and um, part of the thing for the Jesuits is, yeah, it's not a city. It's a very rural environment. I mean, it's a very, very rural population, not dense environment at all. I mean, most of it is landscape. And so the nearest main city is an hour and a half away. So the Jesuits there have really kind of moved their work. They're working in schools, and then they support all these tiny parishes that can all be hours away from the main hub where we are in Pine Ridge. But it's really working with Lakota peoples, Lakota students, and just providing a good education and faith elements that include both their Catholic faith and a lot of the Lakota practices. And a way of seeing how can these two things work together and provide some synergy for each other.
Of course, Nathan, community life is a big part of Jesuit life, and I'm guessing one of the blessings of your current mission is you get to live with a whole bunch of your friends, because it's got guys who have come through formation with you. What's what are some typical fun things that you all do within the house there that enable to enjoy in order to enjoy community and enjoy one another?
Yeah, I mean, we do like the typical stuff of there's like hangouts, guys. Some of the rooms here, they have this like little kind of alcove, that like a little porch, like an enclosed porch. And so at least pre-COVID, we'd have pretty dense hangouts. People sitting on the floor and chairs all around. Pack 15 people into this like 10 by 5 space. So, we would do stuff like that, especially on the weekends, Friday, Saturday night. People watch movies here, pre-COVID. Lots of guys would go out and, see shows and other things like that the city offers. People would go out and do runs and other exercise and things like that. We have a croquet set. It hasn't been used, but I'm kind of hoping maybe we can wear gloves and masks and go do some COVID croquet. So yeah, things like that. And especially now it's like smaller groups, but it's because of trying to be distant. But I think the fruit recently has been because we're kind of like even at dinner, now we're like very spaced out. You have much like quieter, more kind of you know intimate conversations rather than it just being more of like surface stuff. It's been an opportunity to be able to talk more about like what's going on because you only have one other person a lot of times you're sitting with at dinner now, so it's a lot more personal in some ways, which has been a great grace.
And it looks like you recently got a haircut.
I did, yeah.
Places are closed. How did that happen, Nathan?
So Gonzaga House is fortunate. I live about 30 people, and we have, I think, 3 guys who cut hair. 2 are kind of more official. One also has thrown his name into the ring, but I don't think has been used a lot. Maybe because he had practiced on a dog before, and that was his only experience. I'm not really sure. So yeah, but we have 2 guys who cut hair. So yeah. Other people, when they've seen it, they're like, "How did you get your hair cut? Are you going out to the barber?" It's like, I'm not going out to the barber. Just had a guy in house. I've contemplated just doing the Father Murphy style, because I could do that on my own, but we'll see. When summer comes, you got to go for the summer cut. So
maybe when we're done here, you could give me some advice on product to get a little bit.
I think Brian Urlacher has a lot of billboards in the city. I'm skeptical, but
what advice would you give a young person who's discerning a vocation to religious life?
I think the advice I would give is basically, not to like kind of magnify the decision into something bigger than it needs to be, not to like absolutize the decision. Like I either am going to be a priest or religious, brother or sister for the rest of my life. Really, it's like, where is God calling me today? Where is God calling me in this next step? So in practical words, that might mean, okay, like Nathan, calm down. It's not about, am I going to be a priest for the rest of my life? And I'm thinking about all those things that, come with that. As I'm praying about this, is God inviting me to this? How am I responding? And is maybe a step to contact a vocation director, is a step to maybe just talk to my friends about it or talk to my family, because they're going to give you feedback like, oh, I've actually thought about this for a long time. Like, I've been waiting for you to say something, or, that's interesting that you mentioned that. I could see you as a priest or brother or sister. And so I think in those small ways to be paying attention, where might God be leading me in like a baby step, rather than like, I have to take this huge lunge and I'm not ready to do that, but I could do the small thing. So I think that would, because along the way you then put all those things together, and it's kind of like running a marathon or something. You have to start with your first mile, or your training 6 months before. It's not I have to go out and do it right away, and just to do those things and see where it leads.
Absolutely. You sound like someone who has run a marathon or 2.
Yeah, well, we were scheduled, a couple of us, to run a marathon in Milwaukee over on Holy Saturday. Actually, we got canceled like everything else. So we created a course on Loyola's campus here on the north end, so we didn't have to cross any streets. And we ran 18 laps around the campus here. It's pretty flat. There are 3 slight hills, very, very slight, but you feel them. So we did that about 2 weeks ago after they shut down the Lakeshore Trail because that was packed. So yeah, we just kind of spaced out 6 feet and ran around campus and would run by one of the Jesuit houses, and they would throw us Oreos or, Gatorade or something. So yeah, it was a great, great sort of day. A 5-hour run day. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, Nathan Krawetzke, thank you so much for joining us on
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk. We will